Suddenly, nobody's paying attention. But let me tell you something. God saw it. Oh, yes, he saw it. He saw the whispers behind your back, the plans formed against you in secret places. He saw the lies they told, the way they smiled in your face while plotting to tear you down. You may not have heard the conversations, but he did. You may not have seen the setup, but he did. While you were busy loving them, trusting them, standing by their side, God saw their real intentions. And I know it hurts. It's painful to realize that the people you prayed for, the people you sacrificed for, were the very ones digging a hole for you behind the scenes. You gave them loyalty, and they repaid you with deception. You spoke highly of them, but they slandered you when you weren't around. They tried to block opportunities that had your name on them, thinking no one would ever find out. But here's the thing, God is not blind. See, people can fool man, but they can't fool God. They can pretend, they can manipulate, they can wear a mask so convincing that the whole world believes them. But God sees straight through it. He doesn't just see actions. He sees the heart. He knows the motives. He knows what they meant when they said those words. He knows why they did what they did. And maybe right now you're in that place of confusion, wondering, God, why would you allow this? Why would you let them get away with it? But let me remind you, they didn't get away with anything. Just because justice hasn't come in the way you expected doesn't mean justice isn't coming. Because God has a way of dealing with hidden betrayals. When Joseph's own brothers threw him into a pit, they thought they got away with it. They thought they buried his dreams, buried his potential, buried his destiny. But what they didn't realize was God saw it. And because God saw it, he used what they meant for evil to position Joseph for elevation. The same people who tried to destroy him had to watch him rise to power. And maybe that's what God is doing for you. Maybe the betrayal was never about breaking you. It was about positioning you. Maybe the reason it happened in secret is because your promotion will happen in public. But you have to trust him. You have to trust that his eyes are on you, that he hasn't forgotten what was done to you. You don't need to chase revenge. You don't need to expose anybody. You don't need to beg for people to believe you. Because when God moves, the truth will be undeniable. So don't waste your energy trying to prove yourself to people who are never for you. Don't lose sleep over those who misjudged you, who underestimated you, who tried to dim your light behind the scenes, because while they were working against you in the dark, God was working for you in the light. And when he gets ready to move, when he gets ready to shift things in your favor, when he gets ready to lift you up, nothing and no one will be able to stop it. Because he saw it all. And when God sees it, justice is only a matter of time. Betrayal cuts deeper than any wound you can see. It doesn't leave bruises on the skin. It leaves scars on the soul. And the hardest part, it never comes from your enemies. It comes from the people you let close, the ones you trusted, the ones you defended when others warned you. It's not a stranger's words that break you. It's the whisper of someone you once called family, the deception of someone you once called a friend. But let me tell you something. The enemy doesn't waste his attacks on those who don't have purpose. If you've been betrayed, if you've been lied on, if you've been abandoned by people who once stood beside you, understand this. It's not because you were weak. It's not because you weren't enough. It's because you are chosen. The enemy doesn't come after people who don't have destiny on their life. He doesn't waste time on those who aren't a threat to his plans. No, he goes after the ones carrying purpose, the ones with anointing, the ones who have something powerful inside them. And the enemy is not foolish. He knows that a direct attack won't always work. So instead, he gets strategic. He attacks through the ones you love. Because the enemy knows something. Pain hits different when it comes from someone you trusted. A stranger's betrayal is easy to ignore, but when it's someone you laughed with, someone you cried with, someone you would have given your last for, that's a different kind of pain. That kind of pain doesn't just hurt. It shakes your faith. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder if you'll ever trust again. And that's exactly what the enemy wants. See, betrayal isn't just about breaking your heart. It's about breaking your spirit. It's about making you bitter, making you angry, making you shut down and isolate yourself. Because if the enemy can make you lose faith in people, then he can make you lose faith in your calling. If he can make you believe that everyone is against you, then he can convince you to stop walking in your purpose. But listen to me. You cannot let betrayal break you. You are not the first to be betrayed. You are not the first to be talked about, plotted against, pushed aside. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him into a pit, left him for dead, and sold him into slavery. Why? Because he had a vision, because he had a destiny, because he was chosen. And the enemy knew that if Joseph ever walked in his calling, he would be unstoppable. So what did he do? He sent betrayal. He sent pain. He sent rejection. Look at Jesus. He was betrayed with a kiss. Judas didn't just leave. He didn't just walk away. He pretended to be close while secretly working against him. And don't miss this. Judas was necessary, because without Judas, Jesus wouldn't have made it to the cross. Without the betrayal, there would be no resurrection. Without the attack, there would be no victory. So maybe, just maybe, this betrayal wasn't meant to break you. Maybe it was meant to position you. Maybe the very thing that was supposed to destroy you is the thing God will use to elevate you. Maybe the people who thought they were setting you back were really setting you up. Because here's the truth. The enemy has no new tricks. He's been using betrayal since the beginning of time. Why? Because it works. Because it hurts. Because it makes people give up. But what he doesn't realize is that what the enemy meant for evil, God will always turn for good. So I need you to do something. I need you to wipe your tears, lift your head, and understand this attack was not about you being weak. It was about you being chosen. Because the ones who carry the most purpose often face the most pain. The ones who have the greatest calling often endure the deepest betrayals. And if God allowed it, he's going to use it. If he let them betray you, he's going to make sure it works for your good. Because no weapon formed against you shall prosper, not even the ones that came from people you loved. There are moments in life when the weight of what you've been through feels unbearable. The betrayal, the rejection, the loss, the disappointment. It was supposed to break you. It was supposed to leave you so shattered that you'd never recover. They thought that if they hurt you bad enough, if they turned their back on you, if they stripped you of your confidence, you would never rise again. But let me tell you something. God does not waste pain. You see, people may have counted you out. They may have written your story like it was over, but they forgot one thing. God holds the pen. And when God is writing your story, what was meant to destroy you is the very thing he will use to build you. Look at the pain you've survived. Look at the tears you've cried. Look at the nights you wondered if you would ever feel whole again. That storm wasn't easy. That loss wasn't easy. But the fact that you're still standing is proof that it didn't break you the way they thought it would. Oh, it hurts. It wounded you. It took something from you. But there's a difference between being broken and being in the process of being built. Because sometimes, before God can elevate you, he has to tear some things down. Think about a building. Before a skyscraper rises, before the foundation is set, before the walls go up, the ground has to be broken. It has to be dug deep. It has to be prepared. It has to be reshaped. And that process isn't pretty. It's messy. It's painful. It's disruptive. But it's necessary, because if the foundation isn't strong, the building won't stand. And maybe that's what God has been doing in your life. Maybe what you thought was breaking you was really God building you from the inside out. Maybe that betrayal wasn't a setback, it was a setup. Maybe that rejection wasn't about hurting you, it was about redirecting you. Maybe the pain you went through wasn't punishment, It was preparation. Because some of the strongest people, the most powerful warriors, the ones who make the biggest impact, they didn't get there because life was easy. They got there because they endured, because they let the fire refine them instead of destroy them, because they realized that pain is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of something greater. Look at Joseph. His own brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery, and left him to die. He went from being favored to being forgotten, from being a dreamer to being locked in a prison. But what they meant for evil, God was using to prepare him for his purpose. Because in that pit, in that prison, God was shaping him. God was teaching him. God was building him into the leader he was destined to be. And when the time was right, the very ones who tried to break him had to watch him rise. Look at Job. He lost everything. His wealth, his family, his health. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and people thought it was over for him. But what they didn't see was that in the middle of his pain, God was still in control. And when God restored him, he didn't just give him back what he lost. He gave him double. Because when God rebuilds, he doesn't just put you back where you were. He takes you higher. That's why you can't give up. That's why you can't let the pain make you bitter. That's why you can't let what they did to you stop you from becoming who you were meant to be. Because the very thing that was meant to break you, God is going to use it to build you into something stronger, something greater, something unstoppable. So don't focus on the pain, focus on the purpose. Don't look at what was taken, look at what's being built. Because when it's all said and done, you will stand taller, wiser, and stronger than you ever thought possible. And the ones who tried to break you will have no choice but to watch as God lifts you higher than they ever imagined. There is something about deception that cuts deep. When people you trusted turn out to be the very ones working against you, when lies are spoken behind your back, when manipulation and deceit are used to make you look like the villain, it shakes you. It makes you question everything. How could they do this? How could they pretend to love you while secretly plotting against you? And the worst part? It seems like they're getting away with it. It seems like no one sees what they're doing. They smile in public while stabbing you in private. They spread lies while you stay silent. They manipulate situations to make you look like the problem. And you sit there, watching it unfold, wondering, God, do you see this? Do you see what they're doing? Do you see how they're twisting the truth? Why are you letting this happen? But hear me today.